I recently had Keith Elliot Greenberg as a guest on the show. Now, Keith was obviously writing for WWF Magazine all through the period of the late 80s, early 90s, knew Vince very well. He said to me that Vince McMahon never lived in the present moment. He always lived 5 or 10 years down the line. So he was talking about having a network, in the late 80s, having his own WWF network. And I think you can see there, to give Vince McMahon his due on that, you can see that he had obviously seen in Dynamite Kid the future of wrestling and how the business was going to evolve. But obviously Dynamite's style was such a move beyond where the WWF product was. I mean, this was really the era of, Bob Backlund would just transition to Hulk Hogan, but this was very much kind of, we were used to this very, very slow, plodding style of wrestling. We hadn't seen matches like the explosiveness that Dynamite Kid brought to the ring. And so we see that with how quickly Vince is able to kind of evolve the wrestling product. I mean, between WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 2, it's like night and day in terms of presentation and production. By the time that WrestleMania 2 rolls around, obviously the British Bulldogs are in the WWF, not only are in the World Wrestling Federation, but they're in this star-studded spot. So you've got Ozzy Osbourne and Leo Albano in their corner. They win the WWF tag team titles. Like, it's a really, really big moment for them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in a moment, Michelle, obviously being there with Tom. But for you, Bronwyn, obviously so much of this you've had to, you've had to learn your dad's history by looking back at all this footage that you've got of him. How is it when you look back at a match like that, when it was such a big moment for him and Davey Boy?
I think it's definitely one of the largest moments of his career that stands out to me. Having someone like Ozzy Osbourne by your side must have felt really cool for him. And I guess the story was actually that Ozzy Osbourne reached out to Vince McMahon saying, hey, I want to manage these guys. So Ozzy Osbourne saw something in them. And they're like, he was like, these British guys represent, I don't know if he was a wrestling fan, but he
must be. He's been involved in it for so long. If he wasn't then, he definitely is now.
Yeah, and I see him retweet like almost every WrestleMania season a picture with my dad.
He's made enough royalties off wrestling in the last 30 years. I'm sure he's a wrestling fan by now.
Yeah, and I think that that was just a really large moment for them, and they made such a difference in the tag team division. They really brought it forward, and people, study their matches and talk about that tag team division still to this day, like the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs. They really, really put their stamp on it at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally just had Demolition on a couple of weeks ago, and Bill and Barry were both saying that their favourite opponents, really the Hart Foundation, British Bulldogs, Strikeforce, they loved.
And I feel like their gimmicks too weren't far off like who they really were. Like they looked like thick bulldogs, even if my dad didn't like the big heavy cape, it all looked like such a complete package. Like, it made sense. They're cousins, they're good looking British guys. The dog was just perfect.